Today we have a special program thanks to Mr. McLean, Christopher, my dear friend, who invited me today, and we are going to have a show about my mother's story. I want to dedicate it to my mother and her sister. Her sister died in the Holocaust. She was killed in a very brutal situation when she was about 20 years old, and the whole family got destroyed in a way. But I'm here, and I have grandchildren, and I would love to tell you the story and share this story, which is a story of hope and life and beauty. And we are switching here between the computer and the screen, and we have a guest, Vaso, that is our listener. We need the audience for this. We just need one person, and Vaso's father came to the United States 10 years. He was actually came in an embryo, just like I was in my mom's womb. I came 10 years before him, before his father. He came from Greece. I came from former Yugoslavia, which almost borders with Greece. And we will show you pictures and a map of the area. And when Mr. McLean will be ready, I will switch screens and we will show the other screen. And it will be a little bit here. We actually see the screen. We can start with my mom's story, which is, we can switch the screen to there. She was born in 1919 and passed away in 2003 when she was 84 years old. And this presentation, Vaso, is divided to 4 parts. Okay. The first part is the early years. My mom had a very beautiful childhood, and we will switch to the screen to see her hometown, Zagreb. So you can see a picture of Zagreb, actually a picture of my mom right here. That was right after she got married. And this is a picture of her town. The main street of Zagreb when my mom was born was Ilica, and that is the picture of Ilica or Zagreb right now. You know, not much has changed in the city. It's a very beautiful city. This is the picture of my grandfather, who was a soldier in the First World War, and you can see him with my grandmother. With the medals from the First World War. This is my mother's grandmother who lived with them. My mom loved her, and she learned from her many, many beautiful things. She writes, Grosa was the nanny who taught us songs and prayers, told stories whenever we asked. Every day she brought us something from the market. For the small present, we jumped on her lap, and covered her with kisses. Mira and my mom did it. Vaso, did you have grandparents?
Yeah.
And were they also in the States?
Yes.
They came after or with your father and mother?
Yeah.
They came at the same time. I never had grandparents. I wish I would. This is a picture of a stork. My mom had a very protected life. She learned seven languages, and she believed in storks. You know what I mean, that storks bring babies. Until she was about 17 or 16 years old. And she had a very, very good life. She loved her sister, Mira, her name was. She was 3 years younger, Mira. And my mom writes, Mira was courageous and loved every sport, while my mom was a coward and she was a bookworm. And Mira enjoyed books. My mom enjoyed books. Mira loved playing with a favorite doll. She called it Mira, and she just had a wonderful time with her. Well, we always switch when I'm ready to switch to the next slide. The next slide is about my mom being sent to school. My mom was Jewish, like me, and her first day in school, she was, you can see the picture of her high school there in the video. She was forced to pray to Jesus, but Jews don't believe in Jesus. Most Jews. There are Jews who do believe in Jesus, but my mom at that time did not, and her parents took her out. It's so sad that we have all those concepts forcing other people's beliefs. But after that, if we switch to the next slide, the skies in Europe started to darken in 1933 when my mom was 14 years old. This is a picture of the concentration camp, Dachau, the first concentration camp that put political prisoners there. This is a picture of Europe, of the invasion of Austria in 1938, when my mom was 19 years old. Austria was annexed into Germany, and we will go to the next map. A short time after that, 4 countries in Europe sold Czechoslovakia to Germany because they believed that if they would do it, Germany will cease to be so aggressive. Germany actually wanted the whole world. It invaded Greece also.
Yep.
And a lot of our history goes around it. If we go to that slide, we see the forces of Hitler marching through the Prague, the capital of Czechoslovakia. The next slide is about my mom's boyfriend. About that time, my mom met her boyfriend, Fritz, who was a young man. He was probably about 6-7 years older than my mom. At that time, you have this tradition that women married older men, and he was a lawyer, and they just loved music, they loved life, they loved they shared everything in common, and unfortunately, you will see in the next slide, my mom was planning to study in Paris, in the Sorbonne, and she had to leave her boyfriend after 2 months. You can see there on the second floor the apartment where my mom was living, and you can ask yourself what happened with her boyfriend. Well, the next slide shows it. They continued corresponding with each other, and my mom wrote. He wrote her a letter. They wrote long letters to each other, but in one letter he wrote, "I burst with joy thinking that you might become my W." That was in that slide before. I'm overjoyed thinking that you might become my W. So what is W? Wife, right. And then something happened. If we go to the next slide, my grandfather was in New York City at that time when my mom was in Paris. And Germany invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939. And the governments that sold Czechoslovakia, France and England, were put down. Churchill came to power, and Germany was ready to invade France. And my grandfather flew to Paris to pick my mom and take her to back to Zagreb, at that time. So if we go to the next slide, they came to Zagreb and they were married short time afterwards. 1 year after the invasion of Poland on the 2nd of September 1940, they got married. Their life was very, very happy. They rented, my father wanted them to live in an apartment, but they actually lived in their in-laws in Fritz's home, and they had food in my mother's home. So everything was very, very happy. But at the same time, and this may be, if we switch here, and this, I'm talking here to a young man, we don't know what will happen in our life. Like you are now at the beginning of your life. How old are you?
27.
27. It's amazing. You have all your life, all your adventures in front of you. You don't know what will happen. Now, I'm 60, almost 67. I'm 66 years old. So I'm about 40 years older than you. And I can see my life like in a perspective, while like not exactly the sunset of my life yet. I still have some work to do here, but I work with people in nursing homes, and I see, what happens when you get older, and then you draw a picture of your life, you remember your life. But one thing that I would like people to get out of this show is that you never know and never underestimate the power of evil and the power of the human spirit. Because this story, you see, my parents completely underestimated the power of evil. At the very same time, when Hitler already had concentration camps, where tremendous problems happened in Croatia, in Germany, and in surrounding countries, in Poland, my parents just, had a wonderful time, and they just ignored it. Now, always open your eyes. Always be aware. Now, at the same time, this presentation, I would like, people to get out of it the amazing power of the human spirit. Because my mom, in spite of the fact, as you will see, she lost all her family. Everyone got destroyed within a few days. She succeeded to escape. And she lived in the woods. And she was in hiding for 2 years in a small town, and then in the woods for another 2 years. And she survived. And then she gave me life. And I became a teacher at Ithaca College, and I brought a lot of, I had many students over the years, and many of them have me in their subconscious because I gave them some kind of transformation, or I would say, not that it came from me. I was a channel from their own soul to their own soul. Because the academic institutions, we lose the soul. And I was not an ordinary teacher, even though I taught math, but I really taught life. And I viewed myself as a teacher and not as a math. Secondly, I was a math teacher, but most of my colleagues viewed themselves as math teachers first. But I I was who I was. I am who I am. Everyone, you are who you are. So we can now show what happened to my mom. If I go back to the next slide, this is the picture right after they got married, and the next picture is the wedding present. They got many wedding gifts, and they and that, remember, they got married about a year before the invasion of Yugoslavia. So they had actually half a year. So in September 2nd, they married. In April 6th, there was the invasion of Yugoslavia. Now, Yugoslavia first joined the Allies. But then, when the resistance took over, Hitler decided to punish Yugoslavia, and you can see what they did. Hitler, you can see in this picture, for 3 days, from April 6 to 8, day and night, non-stop, this big, beautiful city of Belgrade, was bombed, and 17,000 people were lying dead. My mom wrote in her book that a bear was roaming in the city, confused, because the zoo was destroyed. And then, at the same time, my mother was in another city called Zagreb, and she had to burn all the books that she and her boyfriend or her husband owned, that they loved so much. And they knew that if the Germans found those books, they would kill them. That was one of the darkest days in my mom's life, but much darker things happened. The next is a short summary that I'm going to read from the slide. My mother's life is destroyed. A short time after the invasion of the German troops, Zdenka's sister Mira and her mother Elsa were taken to the Yugoslav island of Pag. Mira was raped, and both Mira and Elsa were killed. And my mother's husband, Fritz, was taken through that island to a cave where thousands were thrown alive to their deaths. My grandfather was taken to Jadovno concentration camp and died there. Out of her entire family, only my mother Zdenka survived. Now, my mom did not write about this in her book, but I hope that Christopher will agree to give me room another week, because in 2005 I went to a journey, and in spite of all odds, I found those places. I found the island and I found the cave. Nobody knew about it at that time there. It was an amazing adventure in my life, and it was one of, I truly feel that it was divinely guided. But in this show, you can see some pictures that I brought from there. Maybe my wife will come with me here also one time, because she was with me in Croatia in 2006, and I'm going there again next month, and maybe I will tell you a little bit about it after I come back. I go to the next slide. This is, I want to devote this to my mom's sister Mira, because I feel very close to her. I never met her in this life, but she was a very down-to-earth girl. She was 3 years younger than my mom, but she knew what was going to happen, because she had a Gentile boyfriend, and still her father didn't agree to leave. He said, "We will have time." But Mira was raped and killed in this island. And I will show you the house that I recently, only about a month, I found a picture of this house. So this is actually the picture of the house. This is the house where my aunt was raped and killed. And this picture was taken about that time. Now, how do I know that? I didn't take this picture. I found it on the internet after only a few months ago, but in my heart I knew this was the picture. I knew, and it was confirmed in the next picture. If you go to the next picture, this is the house in Pag now. The very same house is now a branch of an elementary school that is called Ivo Lola Ribar. And I found it from a Serb who lives in Banja Luka, and he was with me in that area in 2006. This is the dorms of Pag. That's a picture that I took from that island where Mira and Fritz died. And these are the stones where the guards probably lived. This is me and my wife by the cave where there were about 11,000 skeletons, mostly Serbs, about 3,000 Jews. I discovered it in 2005. This is a picture of the island park from a distance, and you can see a beautiful fishing village on the shores. It's not far away from Greece. If you take a boat, this is called the Adriatic Sea, and it goes down, So here is what the picture I took, where the bodies were thrown to the ocean. They tore the bellies of people. They put stones in them so they will sink. They were so cruel. This is the fishing village again. This is the concentration camp where my grandfather died. It was the most cruel concentration camp, much more cruel than Auschwitz. I only found about it recently. This is now the third part, my mother's escape, where she escaped with a train. Now, this comes the human spirit story. And you will see, the picture of the town. My mother hid there in an apartment. She had enough money to pay, and she was working in secrecy to help the resistance movement. She was only 20 years old, but she also refused to eat. She writes in her book, I was haunted by the idea that her family had nothing to eat. I thought, if they are deprived of food, why should I eat? And so I gradually ceased eating, reaching a stage of self-destruction, torturing myself with fasting for 72 hours or more, with 1 or 2 sweets in my mouth, and at the same time taking endless walks or swimming long distances with sleepless nights, reading until the small hours, so that soon I reached the weight of about 75 to 79 pounds. That I read it from my mom's diary. There is a little story there that there was a detective, and I would like to say something about the Italians. The Italians were much more human than the Germans or the Ustasha. The Ustasha are people who live in Croatia. Did you hear about the Ustasha, by the way? They are people who live in Croatia, and they believe in the great Croatian nation. And the sad thing about it, that it's based on distorted religion. They are Catholics, but they are not real Catholics. I mean, real Catholics are, they truly are ridiculous, stupid, infantile, retarded. Truly, if they would be here, I will joke with them, and maybe they will come up to the senses. But what they did, the complete insanity of their belief system, to kill the gypsies, to kill the Jews, to kill the Serbs, it's insane. Now, there are people like that in every culture. They are sometimes put in prisons and in mental institutions, but when a country is put upside down, like it happened in Croatia, in the Second World War, when the Germans came in and they found all those mad people, they put them in power, and they became the leaders. And there are leaders like that in some countries in the world right now. In Africa, I don't know. There are madmen. Humankind needs to go back, and there is God. God is one. God belongs to all religions. God is love. And you know, I mean, it's so, and you know what we create. So I'm really getting emotional here because I'm visiting those places. And I just visited New York City about a month and a half ago in a conference that shows what is happening there right now. They are doing the same thing. Like they believe in the same stupid beliefs, you know, and why do they do it? Because young people, I understand, young people have no sense. They are being brainwashed by other people, you see. So one person, for example, you know, believed, I just read about it recently, my Jewish friend, you know, he invited my Jewish friend and he showed him the swastika and the big boots, and he wanted to actually befriend him and tell him, and my friend got scared and left. But this guy fell trapped into this, you know. Young people can fall trapped into hatred, and they ruin their, you know, their soul is suffering from that so much. So anyway, the Italians, if I go back to the previous slide, the Italians caught my mom, but she was so skinny, and they felt mercy for her, and they let her go. So the reason why I told this whole story is the Italians weren't like that. There were concentration camps in Italy, but nobody died there. They treated the people okay, even though they believed in the fascist movement, but they were still human, you know. Yeah. So there is something to say about Greece and Italy, you know, this part of the world, you know, and unfortunately part of Croatia got insane, and it's still insane. And this insanity is so strong there. You see that people don't talk to each other, and I'm going there and I'm trying to, you know, I promised that I will come there and try to help them to realize, you know, to realize that they are one nation. You see, there are three nations there: the Bosans, which are Muslims, the Croats, which are Catholics, and the Serbs, which are Orthodox. They are like, you have Greek Orthodox and you have Russian Orthodox, which is basically the same religion. 200 years after Jesus, you know, died, this church split, and that created huge rifts. In reality, there is only one Jesus and there is only one God, right? I mean, oy. So my mother had to escape. If I go back, you know, she had to escape because Italy joined the Allied forces, the Allied, you know, England and Germany, and she joined the partisans. The partisans were the guerrilla fighters that were supported by the Americans and the British. And my mom had to go for a trip for about 22 miles, like from here to Trumansburg and back, in one day, until she arrived to a city which was still belonged to the partisans. You can see in the map, Zagreb is on the right. That's the train ride that we explained before, and then was the walk, the small line, which was about 22 miles. So my mom joined the partisans at first in this city, but then very soon they had to leave, and they lived in the woods, and the partisans had even built houses in the woods. You know, they had tree houses, big tree houses with furniture in them, and they had to build them and then take them apart, and build them, take them apart. And they were like Morse coding to the British and the Americans through parachuted Morse code machines like this one. And my mom knew 7 languages, so she was very useful to them. But she still didn't eat, and she had an extremely difficult life, but look at it, that helped her survive. So sometimes difficult life is actually not such a bad thing, because if she would not have this, she would die. I mean, she would just kill herself. She couldn't live. But her difficult life was like, you know, the antidote. And then what happened, this is like an example of a farmhouse where she lived. And she writes, maybe I should read from her own writing. Here I made the acquaintance of those hated little creatures who during the time I stayed with the partisans remained my unwished companions. A girl noticed a louse, which is like a lice, sliding down my forehead, right onto my cheek. It was disgusting indeed. It was also quite an event because among our group I was nicknamed Finodete, which means noble child. With all my leftist ideas, I was and remained perceived as a bourgeoise, which means like a city girl. And then was the escape. Now the next 5 slides describe the last chapter of this story, and we have about 20 more minutes, and I would like to have a little bit, maybe in 10 minutes I will finish this part, and then we'll focus on maybe reflection and maybe a little bit of my story, but we will try to converse a little bit about it, and maybe I will ask you some questions about your family, because truly there is nothing special about my story, my mom's story. Every story is like that. If we ask our parents, our great parents, our great grandparents, the Native Americans that are in this town, the stories are amazing, and they are not always something that you can make a fairy tale out of it. It's real life, and our goal in life is to make our story. Everyone has their own story, and we have a young man here that is starting his life, and he's building his story, and maybe we'll interview him sometime. So the next 5 slides are the escape. What happened? The Germans decided to destroy the partisans, and it was like a mosquito that bothered them. So what do? You get all kind of anti-mosquito spray and nets, and you create all kind of traps and so on. The Germans tried to do this, but the partisans were smarter. What the partisans did, they dispersed. Now, maybe I should read this one slide which kind of summarizes what happened. The partisans had to disperse as the Germans focused their attacks against the underground movement in the spring of 1944. My mother found herself walking for several days and nights until she went into her in-laws, which is a miracle. Now that's another part of this story. Miracles happen all the time. I don't know, maybe we can interview you sometimes and ask you about miracles in your life, which are unusual. Miracles seem to be coincidences, but in reality there are no coincidences. Sometimes miracles can be even dreams. Miracles can be a kind man that can help another man or another person. You see, miracles happen every moment, but we have our eyes closed most of the time. We don't see the miracle. Like Christopher calling me today, coming here to do this show, for me was a miracle, because I always wanted to share this story with other people. And he called me just at the right time. This is an example of a miracle. So the miracle in this story, if we come back to that, my mother returned. My mother, after those 5 days and 5 nights or without sleeping, she slept while she was walking. She met her in-laws and she lived with them for a few months. Her in-laws were Fritz's parents, who was my mom's husband, and he died, and they lost everything. They lost their other son, but they found her daughter-in-law, and they lived in that place for a few months. Then after that, my mom returned to Zagreb. The war ended soon after. My mom met a man which became my father, Zvonko, and he came to Israel, and that was the time when I shared, in 1948, she came with my father to Israel to build a life. And maybe we can hear about your family story sometime. If you can do some research about it, and we can actually prepare an interview. That would be a great gift for the audience to know what happens with Greece. I feel that this show that Mr. McLean is sponsoring can have a great impact, because people have stories, and when we bring those stories to light and we share them, then our humanity becomes richer. So I will share with you if I go back to the 5 days, you see, the first day my mom joined 2 girls, and they walked the whole day. They found a creek like this one, they cooled their legs, and they continued walking. Then they found a little school in a village, they slept for a few hours, but very soon the Germans were after them, they continued walking. Then they found another village. I found a picture on the internet. Now it's became much more than it was then. And finally, after that, she joined her parents-in-law. Not in that place. This is a picture that I found after the war. But in the picture that you will see here, in a farmhouse that was occupied by 2 other families, a little room. And my mother writes, I will read from there, the 2 other corners, okay? My mom slept with her mother-in-law on one bed, and her father-in-law slept on a wooden plank placed between 2 chairs. And my mother writes, the 2 other corners were occupied by the farmer's family. In one, the grandmother slept with her grandson. In the other, the young couple. The kitchen was in the 4th corner. The sheep slept in the narrow entrance. The toilet was outside, a hole in the ground. The whole thing was so unsteady that a little gust, a strong gust could blow it out. So this is after the war, okay? This is the part after the war. My mother eventually left her parents-in-law, went to Zagreb. There she met my father, who was her lawyer at the beginning, and she married him in 1946, and they emigrated to Israel in 1948. And this is another miracle. When you can see in the picture there an orange grove. My parents owned an orange grove that my father bought to Mira when she was 12 years old. Now, if there is no God that arranged it, then I cannot, God is beyond everything. Yeah, I would like to explain it, My aunt, who was murdered when she was 20, had a bat mitzvah. You know what a bat mitzvah is? Now, she was 12 years old. Her father, my grandfather, that I never met, bought her as a present, she never saw it, an orange grove in Israel. This orange grove was enough for my parents to survive after they emigrated to Israel all those years. This orange grove was amazing. So if this is not God, people don't believe in God, but nobody can really not believe in God. Even though they say they don't believe in God, they use another word. They believe in the human spirit. It doesn't matter. One day I will share about my dear friend, So if I show you the end of this story, this is my picture when I was 2 years old. My mother never wanted me to be a boy. She wanted me to be her sister. This is me and my mom. My mom had a new life in Israel. This is my daughter that is in New Zealand. She's visiting now the United States. My wife and my mom in a little grove that we built for the memory of my family in the mountain of Carmel. And there are many pictures here, but we don't have internet connection. We would like to switch here and to maybe connect this to the meaning of life, and we have 10 more minutes, which we can share, and maybe ask. Can you tell the audience your name again?
Vaso.
Vaso, you said you're 27, right?
Yes.
About 27 years old. Your parents came from Greece.
My grandparents came from Greece. My dad was conceived there and
Wow.
then was born here in the States.
Wow. Do you know a little details, like how old were your grandparents?
I think around my age. I think. I'm not sure though. But my grandmother and my great grandpa, her dad, were in Greece during World War II under Nazi occupation, and that was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
He served in the Greek military against the Germans too.
Wow. You see, these stories that we are weaving here are kind of putting things together. Because the Second World War was the reason why both of us are here.
Yeah.
And out of this, you see, we try to go beyond judgment. It is nice to say it would be great if there would be no wars, but what we need to do is to focus on our life and to build our life and to learn from our parents and grandparents. Your parents are alive?
Yes.
You how old are your parents?
They're 55. They're separated now, but yeah, they're 55.
Your father shared with you stories?
Yeah.
Where does your father live now?
In Trumansburg.
Wow, that's fantastic. Maybe we can even connect with him a little bit. I don't want to put him on the spot, but it would be a great, the courageous, like his parents came.
They came after the war.
They came after the war.
But they survived. Well, his mom survived the war. I think. I don't know if his dad was in Greece at the time of the war or not. Probably was.
Do you know what kind of situation they had in Greece? Were they farmers? Did they live in a city?
Yaya, the grandma, she was on a farm in Chios. Mm-hmm. It's an island off the coast of Turkey, and the family had to deal with Turkish stuff as well. The conflict between Greeks and Turks.
Did you ever visit that island?
Yes, twice.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
Wow. And is it under Greece right now?
Yes. Yes. It's so close that to Turkey that there's probably Turkish mixing in our ancestry too. But we identify as Greek. Yeah. Imagine
an island on the Mediterranean Sea that is full of the Mediterranean culture. And can you describe some things about the island, what you remember?
There was, my great-grandpa liked to go fishing. He would go and cast out nets, probably kind of like they did in the biblical times, but cast out nets for the whole day and wait for the fish to get trapped, and then at the end of the day collect the fish. And he had this wasn't his main property, but he had a cabin on the side of the ocean there, and had no electricity, and we would stay there sometimes and eat the fish and stuff. My grandma would cook. It was really good. My great grandpa lived to be 102.
Wow.
He was a smoker his whole life, but he worked hard until his 80s, and he had like the Mediterranean diet and working lifestyle, so he was healthy. But yeah, he was born 1913, I think, and or 1911. And he served in the Second World War in the Greek military, like I said.
That was the grandfather of your mother?
The grandfather of my father.
The great grandfather of your father?
So my great-grandfather.
Yes.
And he was a farmer. He was a stone mason, but he had like a donkey that he would ride around too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, he had a very basic life.
Salt of the earth.
Yes. Do you sometimes long to be in that kind of situation?
Yes. It would be hard work, but...
It is hard work. I think humanity, and this is maybe something for us to kind of reflect, because we have so much now. You have everything. We have the internet, we have TV, we have malls, but how much do we live? You know, go to nursing homes. People are very, very weak. And your grandfather smoked and lived until he was 102 years old.
Yep. He had good diet too, like fish, like I said, lamb, olives, you know.
What a beautiful... how many children did he have?
I think 2 or 3. I'm not sure if I'm only I only really know my grandmother. The others live in Greece still.
It's such a blessing that you actually met your great-grandfather.
Yep, he didn't speak English too. We didn't really have a chance to talk a lot, but I got to meet him.
Wow. So look, we didn't plan this conversation, but it became such a beautiful reflection of life and of if we only lived close to nature and let other people live in their places. But you know, we shouldn't complain, because life is a great adventure. It's an adventure of the spirit. And life goes forward, not backwards. So we would like to end this show now, because it's time for us to end this part, but we can see some beautiful opportunities to interview people and find out about their lives. And we want to thank Mr. McLean for hosting us today. And we will say goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sweet child, in time you'll see the line that's drawn between the good and the bad. See the blind man, yeah, he's shooting at the world, bullets flying, oh, taking toll. that you have, and you've not been here, you've not been hit by flying lead. You better close your eyes, you better bow your head. Wait for the ricochet. I'm crying for you day and night. Need a beat. I wanna hear you sing. Sweet child, in time you'll see the line that's drawn between the good and the bad. that you have, and you've not been hit by flying lead. You better close your eyes, you'd better bow your head. Wait for the ricochet. Three times I tried to